uh, we're also offering that number. So yeah. And with that, I'd like to invite Linda to briefly introduce CFUW, share the purpose of tonight's event, and outline how our discussion connects to the four focus areas. Go ahead, Linda.
Sorry, Helly, I'm just trying to get to the chat, and I want to put that information in. No, sorry, that's so okay, I will go ahead with this first, and then I'll put that number in afterwards. So sorry. So CFUW has been in London for 105 years, and you can imagine 105 years ago, the options for women to go to university were much slimmer. And so organizations like CFUW or CFUW University Women's Group, all of these groups were started to allow or to help women to be able to go to post-secondary education. So the CFUW stands for the Canadian Federation of University Women. The club was exclusively for graduate women from, and the only thing that you could graduate from back then beyond high school was university. And then with the advent of colleges, then CFUW changed and said you could be a graduate of university or of college. Now that women are actually graduating from post-secondary in greater numbers than men, although we still have a big fight, we still have lots of issues to contend with in the discrimination that happens both in the classrooms and in the workplaces beyond the classrooms. We have opened, CFUW has opened its doors to all women who want to, or individuals who identify as women who want to advance human rights conditions and equality for women. So that has prompted the organization to call themselves CFUW and not the full title, because they don't want to inhibit people from joining. It is a membership-based organization, so everybody pays a fee, and that fee is what runs the organization. So in London, we charge $90 for a one-year membership fee, and that $90 goes to help fund all of the things that I'm going to talk about now. The idea is that because we're not government funded, we don't have to answer to government, so we can actually be a watchdog and make resolutions to government saying that we want changes. So some of the things we do, local projects, we do advocacy and awareness, we bring in speakers, and we make donations. In London here, we donate $4,000 to UWO each year in bursaries and $4,000 to Fanshawe in bursaries. That's every year. $1,500 goes to the Read program at the Central Library. Over $900 goes to Innova's Children's Lunch Program, and $1,000 to the United Way Women's New Beginnings Fund. So those are just some of the things that London Club gets involved in. And what makes this organization unique is that we have interest groups, and so that the women can actually join not just the bigger group, but they can actually become part of the interest groups. And in that, it could be about, going to lunch. It could be a book group. It could be an advocacy group. And that's kind of the premise of the organization. Nationally, we have 90 clubs across Canada, and many of those are in Ontario. We have 6,700 members plus over $1 million fundraised by these clubs. And the organization itself is also 105 years old. So when London started, so did the Canadian organization start. We also have consultative status with the United Nations, which means that every year, 20 women from the organization can be selected to get delegate status. And then you get a pass to go inside the United Nations. And it's for the meetings of the Commission of the Status of Women that happens in March in New York. And so that's one of the perks of being a member. And your way isn't paid. I have to be honest. You have to be able to self-fund that piece. but you actually do get a letter which allows you to have access to the United Nations for those meetings. And so that's a big bonus in itself. And so that's just a little bit about CFUW, and I'll stop. I'll stop and pass it back then.
Hello everyone. So in this session, I would like to share the outcomes of our 4 resolution papers covering intimate partner violence, invisible homelessness, menstrual hygiene, and period poverty, along with insights from our placement work at CFU London. IPV remains the leading cause of women's homelessness in Canada, with 91% of homeless women experiencing violence and 96% reporting sexual assault during homelessness. In Ontario, 90% of homeless families are headed by single women, whose core housing needed rate of 30.5% is nearly triple the provincial average, while Indigenous women are 3 to 5 times more likely to experience homelessness due to systematic racism and intergenerational trauma. Many avoid shelters altogether for safety, privacy, or child custody concerns. Invisible homelessness, staying with friends or family in overcrowded spaces or with abusive partners, affects at least 7% of Canadian women, with Cambridge estimating over 5,000 in precarious housing and Toronto's count showing only 2.1% of visible homelessness on women. Wait times for transitional housing can reach 12 to 24 months, and policies rarely address women's hidden homelessness. On menstrual hygiene, 1 in 6 Canadian faces period poverty. 36% of women sacrifice essentials to afford products. 63% miss important activities, and 74% in Northern Ontario reports supply difficulties, often resorting to unsafe alternatives that heighten infection risks. Over half experiences emotional distress, while shelters frequently lack supplies and survival shoplifting is sometimes criminalized. Period poverty also intersects with housing insecurity, education, and equity, disproportionately impacting Indigenous women, newcomers, refugees, and trans individuals. In London, 1,942 people experience homelessness, 89% of them are female. Many struggle to meet basic menstrual needs. Addressing these crises requires trauma informed, culturally inclusive housing, integrated mental health support, reliable data on hidden homelessness, and free, sustainable menstrual products in shelters and community spaces, alongside education to dismantle stigma. So, these 4 interconnected issues are urgent, data driven problems that demand immediate coordinate action. Through our resolution and placement work with CFUW, we call for policies that ensure safety, dignity, and stability for all women across Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka, for shedding light on that matter. And thank you, all of you, for staying with us as we move into our panel discussion, which I have the pleasure of moderating. So, we've got 3 remarkable panelists here today, each with their own expertise and life stories. You're going to hear perspectives that span lived experiences, community leadership, and national policy. So, starting with Addie Marshall is a student at Fanshawe College in the Addictions and Mental Health program. As a registered social service worker with lived experience, Addie truly understands and appreciates the struggles associated with homelessness. Their journey began at 14, experiencing homelessness off and on until the age of 20 while raising 2 children. Addie has overcome addiction, homelessness, and mental health challenges and now works to encourage and support others facing similar struggles. So we have another speaker, Pastor Sandy Thomas. So Pastor Sandy Thomas is the senior pastor of Spiritual Blessing Lighthouse Ministries in London, an international motivational speaker. She serves on boards including Internet Sense First, the CDIS Anti-Racism Panel in the City of London, and London Middlesex Health Unit as well. She is the director of PR for the Congress of Black London, co-author, documentary participant, and also the founder of Wayne Community Centre and London's first Black community public library. We have Debbie McCraw. She is a long-time social justice advocate with over 20 years in housing case management, and she currently works as the case manager team lead at Salvation Army Crossroad Men's Shelter in Saskatoon, and she also serves on the National Right to Housing Network's steering committee and co-founded the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership Network. So Debbie brings powerful insight as a person with lived experience as well. So moving on to the speakers. First of all, I'd like to start with Addie. Addie, so your story is very powerful, and I know our audience will definitely value hearing directly about your journey. So, from your own lived experience, what personal challenges did you face in navigating homelessness alongside mental health concerns? So, in particular, how did access or lack of access to basic needs such as menstrual hygiene products or regular toiletries impact your sense of dignity and overall well-being?
Well, my experience with homelessness started younger than some, obviously. My parents should have kept me at 14, but I was not able to be, so I kind of lived on the streets. And at that age, you're too young to enter shelters, so it's kind of staying on creepy men's couches and doing what you can to survive. Uh, I guess I have a benefit when it comes to the menstrual stuff. I suffer from PCOS and endometriosis, so I don't really get a cycle. But there were times when I was younger when it would just happen as I was homeless, and it was quite embarrassing, I won't lie. Uh, I've had to use like toilet paper, uh, folded toilet paper like rolls and stuff to kind of like protect myself from bleeding everywhere type thing. And it's not fun. I've had to most recently, like I was on the list for housing, which I thankfully got into a couple of years ago. But I was on the list for with priority status because I was in an abusive relationship and I had to send my kids to live with their dad because they couldn't be at my house for their safety. And it took 9 months to actually get a place so I could be reunited with my kids, which was very challenging. Thankfully, I've been with them again for the past 3 years and they're safe and everything, but definitely not an easy thing to experience. And mental health, um, getting into a hospital to get mental health care is nearly impossible as a homeless person because they kind of just assume that you're looking for a shelter to stay and don't actually need help. So a lot of times you're there for a couple hours waiting and then they're just like, well, you're discharged, go back on the streets, deal with your things. Had multiple suicide attempts while I was homeless because of being sexually abused by creepy men and just basically the experience of being homelessness or being homeless is not one that I would wish even on my worst enemy.
That's really heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, Adi. I know I cannot understand, but I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this. Can you share a little bit about your experience with the kind of supports or services that you had taken or that would help the women out there who are still struggling with housing facilities?
I found like for me, at least locally in London, Inova was very helpful. They helped me get my letters for priority status because of being abused. They got me counseling through their referral program, which didn't end up costing me anything. And like, they just, they're a great resource for sure. And also Roth Home, I stayed there with my kids when I first came to London back in 2015 for a few months while I waited for housing because I had to get out of where I was living.
Oh, that. Thank you for sharing, Addie. So I have one question for you. So if you had something on your wish card or wish list, what do you wish more people understood about the various causes of housing and its effect? That is the realities of living without stable housing.
Well, the one thing that I always like to kind of remind people, because it's a bit of a reality check, is you are one bad day away from being in their position. You have one bad day at work, you can get fired, and then you could lose your house. You could be in the exact same position as them. So why judge them? Why not provide them the support and empathy that they deserve? They're humans too.
That's a great catch. We all are humans, and empathy is, I think, the basic thing that we can give out to the people. So, what do you want? What would you want the community members or the bystanders to know, or if they suspect a woman is actually facing unsafe housing conditions or they're going through some kind of violence?
Be supportive, but don't be judgmental or pushy about it because there was a lot of people that judged me for the 9 months when I lived in the house with my abuser because my kids couldn't be there. I got in trouble every time I talked to my children's father so that I could find out about my kids. Of course, I was going to anyways because those are my babies. But like a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just leave? But a lot of people also don't realize it takes 7 times, a lot of times to leave. And if you are lucky enough to leave, then you're very strong, but it's also you're very strong if you have to stay for your survival and make a plan. Just be supportive, listen to them without judging.
Thank you, Addie, for sharing your personal journey. I know it is very personal to you, but you chose to come and speak up in front of all of us so that we could help other women who are going through the same to know about your experience. So, thank you so much. So, I would like to move on to Sandy. Um, so, Sandy, picking up from Addie's powerful lived experience, I want to bring the focus to what you are seeing right now in our local community. You're involved in so many initiatives that I wanted to ask what specific local challenges do women experience regarding visible or invisible homelessness and mental health concerns, especially regarding to access to safe shelter, mental health supports, and basic necessities such as menstrual hygiene products and regular toiletries, as Addie had mentioned.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here today. This is a very important topic. It's something that's not really discussed, and it should be a topic that's more discussed, so there's more awareness of it, and then we can have more solutions. It seems to be like a taboo kind of topic. So I do thank you very much for doing this evening. One of the things that I've noticed within the community, things that are missing or could be better. Take for example, we talked about the shelters, and I think Addie may agree with me. With this is there is a shortage because there's so many women that are going through trauma, and a lot of these spaces that they have for women only, there's not enough beds, right? And then the requirements, eligibility requirements. There's curfew. There's maybe they can't allow any pets. Then there's partner status that will prevent many from accessing these type of shelters. So there's so many barriers that are put in place that can cause a challenge. Culturally safe shelters as well for those that are indigenous or that are from Africa or other places. there's not a lot of shelters that are culturally safe shelters for women. Now we talk about the invisible. There are a lot, as Addie mentioned so well, in regards to she was basically couch surfing, and this can be unsafe as well, and that causes barriers there again because women are left unseen in these um, situations that are not good. We talk about the mental health, and this also trickles down to the mental health and how do they navigate their way through, because many women are facing the trauma, and it's coherent with the mental health aspect with substance abuse, being abused, and I am a survivor of domestic violence myself. And so being in a space where you're constantly being berated, being less told that you're less than, a space that you're being beaten on constantly. This creates trauma, creates hurt, it creates mental illness. And so, what supports? There's not a lot of supports out there for women that are experiencing this. We do have programs as Sisters Place, which we deal with a lot. Um, and there are stigmas. So the waiting times are significant. The mixed gender environments, there's a stigma, there's the negative past experiences that people might not understand, and it creates a fear. And so these are some of the things as we work in the community that we're seeking, that we're noticing, and this reduces the willingness for women to seek help. We talk about the menstrual issues as well that we don't really talk about, and it's very, very important. We know that the libraries are to provide within the city buildings, in their bathrooms, um, menstrual products for free. But what happens after hours when they're closed, right? What happens? They're not being distributed in the encampment areas, right? Supplies, tampons, hygiene items, and so these are other barriers that are again in place, are not being in places where women need it in order for them to feel safe. When you're on your cycle and you're already living on the streets and you have your period, as Addie so well put it, you're basically trying to use anything. And so, what can we do? We need to put things in place so women can have that dignity, especially during that time, that they can have that sense of self-worth. And so, yeah, I believe those are the concerns, visible and invisible, when it comes to homelessness and mental health concerns here in London that we're seeing at the community center that we work
Yes, Sandy. So you've beautifully put all the barriers that women can have when, especially homeless women. So at community level, what do you see as the most effective way to address homelessness, mental health needs, and especially for women who are experiencing invisible homelessness? As visible, we can see it right in front of our eyes, but invisible homelessness is very hidden, kind of, that we don't talk much about. So what are your thoughts on that?
So, what can we do for those that are having the invisible? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, what can we do as at the community level? Like, since we have
Yeah.
been seeing.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, and that's something that we continue to struggle with. But I would like to see where we are going into the encampments and giving the women the resources they need for when they're on their cycle, putting up or having it London Cares and other places where women can go, because as you said, they're the invisible. So those that are couch surfing, putting maybe posters up at the grocery store. So if a woman is at the grocery store and she sees this, or in the dollar store, some flyers up where women can go and get the necessary um, products that they need And so if take for example, we put it up in the dollar store. If you are in need of menstrual products or toiletries, and you're a woman or identify with being a woman, please come to 150 Dundas Street, Tuesdays at 1 to 3. So that way people can come, they can get it, and they can feel dignified when they're doing so. I'd like to see more of that kind of an outreach within there. One of the things that we were talking about as a team that we're trying to see if we can get it funded would be having a mobile outreach just for that, to go out into the community during different times of the month and handing out, these products for women. Again, maybe working with the library and other places to do training, and hiring people to go out into the streets and to do this, because the more that we can do that and get the word out, those that are invisible, those that are doing the couch surfing, will be able to hear about it and come out and get the necessary products that they need during this time. And that will create more of a mental wellness, because it's less stress for them during that time. And so they'll be able to navigate a little bit better through life when they have and know where they can get these products for free. And that's the most important thing, not putting a price tag on it or anything like that, but allowing the individual to come in and get these products for free. So those are the type of things that we're trying to work on. And I'd like to see more partnership with more of the nonprofit sector to do things like this. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. So you mentioned about various ways that we can address these issues. Do you think there are also barriers, like local barriers related to all of these needs, that can prevent these solutions from being fully implemented, like in full-fledged?
Well, yes, there are always barriers that are put in place. When we talk about the capacity, will we have enough people to do this? That's a barrier to put anything of this magnitude into to implement it. You're looking at the capacity. Then we look at the fact of transitional housing. For the options for single women, there's always barriers there as well for housing, for shelters. When you think about the hubs as well, once again, you're looking at barriers in regards to the hours that the hubs are running. When we're talking about cultural safe shelters, do we have that? Once again, the capacity, and also will you be able to have a person that will be designated to help these individuals, and how does that look? So then there's always barriers there for staff as well. When we're speaking about in regards to hygiene and the products for women that are having their menstrual cycle, barriers again are placed there because, as Addie, and I have my sister that has endometriosis, getting them the necessary help they need, giving them that education. There's barriers there because of the homelessness. They never get enough people that would do one-on-one dedication to that woman. And so that creates another barrier in regards to getting them and helping them navigate through what they're going through health-wise, and be able to address those concerns with them. So there are barriers there because I always say my friends that are unhoused many times have to keep moving. So they might be at the shelter for 2 months. You're getting to know them one-on-one, but then they have to leave and they go somewhere else. And so that creates another barrier there as well, in order to implement these type of solutions for the situation.
So, Sandy, since you've talked about the barriers, what are your thoughts on solving these barriers by bringing together the key community stakeholders, including the community members, housing sectors, even the faith groups and service providers, so that we can create a framework where we can effectively create a framework regarding gender responsive housing solutions?
That's a very, very good question. And that's something that I'm always looking at. And I do have a proposal waiting to always at hand. So that question just it speaks to who I am because what happens is with the faith-based, I always tell the pastors and the amans or the different faith-based organizations that I work with that this problem is not a problem that cannot be solved, but we have to work collectively together in order to find the solutions. But there's always some barriers. One of the things that I speak about would be having, and I know we do have some already, but having those transitional beds to ensure that every woman in London, regardless whether where she's sleeping rough on a couch or if she is unhoused, they have access to safe shelters and trauma informed supports and pathways for permanent housing. And how that works is exactly what you were saying, getting the faith-based organizations, getting the nonprofit organizations, everybody working together, because it's not about religion. It is about a way of life for individuals, because I always say if your spirit's not well, nothing is well. And so working together to navigate through this housing system to create permanent housing and to liaison with some of these landlords so that you can have a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week transitional housing to 12 from 20 to 12 beds, and having the mental health and trauma counseling there, the peer mentorship with staff with this experience. You have a place for the children to play in and have support for mothers as well. You want to make sure that it's a place that is designed safely, and you have private rooms for when the women have private rooms. It's culturally safe for the Black, Indigenous, and for newcomers that are coming into the city. You want to have a mobile outreach team that also can go out with their vans with hygiene kits, menstrual products, food, and harm reduction supplies. As a community service worker and with my certificate in harm reduction, I understand what that looks like. Having portable places within the mobile outreach that has where they can have charge up their phones. They're out on the streets. Are we giving them access where they're able to charge their phones up? Free Wi-Fi spots for online services, right? I look at the fact of, there's Meals on Wheels, but how about, I always call it the safe haven bed. So where you can have a bed on wheels for them. Connections to mental health, legal aid, and income support, which we have programs like this. We're just tying it all together so it'd be like a holistic hub for that woman and what she's going through, so they don't have to go to this program, that program, here and there. It could be in one location for them to have this type of networking system. So that's something that we have that proposal to build so that it could be a sustainable a plan with blended funding with the municipal, the provincial, and the federal housing with health grants. And so that is something that we're looking at, trying to get numbers so we can continue to do the data-driven accountability, because we know that the numbers for women that are unhoused, it is climbing. We know that women that are going through domestic violence, it's climbing. Women with mental health issues, it's climbing. And so what do we need to do? We need to put things in place to eliminate some of these barriers, and so that they can have a meaningful life. And I just want to say hats off to Addie for doing what she's doing and coming back and being a support system to the rest of her sisters. I thank you for that. And that's all I have to say for that. Thank you.
Oh, that is such a beautiful outlook, Sandy. And the proposal that you've said you've been formulating looks like a very big plan, and best wishes for that. We really hope it becomes a success. So, yeah, I have one last question for you. So, if you could see one new program, policy, or even a local partnership launched in our community tomorrow to address all of these issues, what would it be? And what would make it sustainable in if we see in a long term as well?
And I believe that if I had, you said one,
Yeah.
to see a housing for at least 60 women in a traditional housing, with 70% of them within a year to 2 years moving to permanent housing, within that housing scheme or transitional housing, we would be able to distribute 10,000 menstrual and hygiene items directly to women in need yearly. That is what I would like to see happen within the region of London, and that we put a policy in place with the city, because I know that they have money for housing, for the homelessness, but to dedicate some of that to women that are homeless. That's what I like to see.
That is such an amazing viewpoint, Sandy. Thank you so much. So now we'd like to move to Debbie. So we've seen the personal journey, we've known about the local condition and what Sandy has been doing. So now let's zoom out to the national level, to Debbie. And Debbie, so since you've worked in shelters, in policy, and even created national guidelines, so from a national standpoint, what strategies or policies could make the biggest impact in ending visible and invisible homelessness for women, particularly those facing mental health challenges, as mental health challenges still seems to be playing a big part on all of this?
Sorry, forgot I had to unmute. Hi, everybody. First, I'd like to say thanks for having me. I've been thinking a lot about that question since our discussion last night, and I jotted down a few points that were important to me and from my perspective. And so I'm going to start with, there are several national strategies that can impact women, but they need to be focused on economic empowerment, ending gender-based violence, and promoting women's leadership and participation in decision-making. They also need to be person-centered and human rights-based. They need to include investing in community-based programs that address the root causes of women's homelessness and support women's safety and empowerment. That part is very crucial. And part of the reason I added that piece about women's safety and empowerment is because, Addie, I can so relate to your story. My lived experience comes from being kicked out of the house at 15 because I got pregnant and refused to have an abortion. And that was followed by 20 years of domestic abuse. And Addie is very right. It takes 7 to 10 years for a woman to leave a domestic abuse situation. Policymakers also need to include women of lived experience at decision-making tables, because we are the ones that know what policies are working and what policies aren't working. We're the ones that have to live by the policies. So lived experience needs to be at all levels of decision-making tables. It needs to be local, it needs to be provincial, and it needs to be national. That has to include women with disabilities, women with mental health issues, women with lived experience.
Thank you, Debbie. So regarding all of this, what systemic barriers do you think are stopping these solutions from moving forward, including access to basic necessities, as we've mentioned in the previous with the previous speakers regarding menstrual hygiene products and even the regular toiletries?
There's so many barriers right now. There's not enough funding for organizations that are providing supports to women. They need to be, there needs to be more investments in these organizations so that they have the capability of picking up the slack from where, and I'm going to say it right out loud because I'm an open person. You know, the organizations that are working and supporting women are picking up the slack from the government. These are things the government should be providing, and they should be providing the funding for them. And they're not doing that right now. But the organizations are struggling because they're all fighting over the same dollars and not being able to provide the supports that are needed. For example, I'm going to use Saskatoon as an example because this is where I live. We have one women's shelter with a capacity of 30 women. It takes children too, but it's our YWCA. We did have another women's shelter, which was where I started working with the Salvation Army at. And we had a capacity of 48 where we could take women and children. But due to lack of funding, it closed. So once that closed, we were only left with the YWCA. We have women on the streets with children. We try to speak to them and try and get their opinions and try and get their thoughts and try and get, find out what are their needs, what can we do to help them, what can we do to support them. They don't want to talk to us. They don't want to talk to community members. They don't want to talk to organizations, because if we put their information into any sort of document or research, even if we don't use their names, there's a fear of using their quotes, and that social services will know that that quote came from them and their kids will be apprehended. So how do we prevent that from happening? There needs to be more affordable housing. There needs to be, social services needs to be increased to the cost of living. And there needs to be a basic income implemented aside from social services.
So this really gave a perspective that the barriers are not just present in the local level, but also in the national level, right, Debbie?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of these issues are systemic, and they're coming from not only local, but provincial and federal levels. And the problem is that local, provincial, and federal governments are not working together. And, we have this national housing strategy that I think it was implemented in 2019. I can't remember what year. But we haven't really seen any positive change from that. And I've said right from the get-go that until the three levels of government start working together, that national housing strategy is not going to work.
Yeah. So regarding all of this, and since you've shared your experience, lived experience as well, and you've also co-founded the Lived Experience Advisory Council Canada, and there is this 7 principles of inclusion that you've developed. So can you tell us a little bit more about what are these principles and how can they guide housing policy and practice to better support individuals, especially women and gender diverse individuals?
The 7 principles came about because in 2014, I was at a Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness conference in Vancouver. And there was a few lived experience people there, not many, from across Canada, and we started talking. But one of the things I noticed about the conference was with over 800, almost 800 to 1,000 people there, was that the lanyards they had our name tags on were different for people with lived experience than they were for the rest of the participants, for the paid participants. So to me, that kind of stigmatized people with lived experience, and it kind of made us stand out. And hey, look, that's a person with lived experience. You know, it wasn't inclusive. So we started talking about how do we change things? How do we make a difference? And a group of us came together, and Emily Paradis, who is a housing researcher out of Toronto, was working for the Federal Housing Advocate, is now working for the Housing Council, the National Housing Council. She was our support person and our mentor. And when we left that conference, we formed a group and we decided that we needed to make some changes. And so we started talking about, you know, we need some guidelines. We need ways of people with first voice and people with lived experience being included, and not just in organizations, but on boards too, at government levels, on every level that there is an organization, a board member, whatever you want. You know, I'm losing my train of thought here. But what I'll do is I'll just go over what the basic 7 principles are. And if anybody would like a copy, I can send them to Sarah, and she can send them out to you guys.
Yeah, sure.
That. So the first one, the 7 principles also comes with a checklist that you can check off to make sure you're following all these principles. So the first one is nothing about us without us. We believe and are guided by an advanced 7 principles for leadership and inclusion of people with lived experience of homelessness. That begins with the principle of nothing about us without us. We believe that ending homelessness is possible. We believe homelessness should and can become rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. We work for those who are at risk or are experiencing homelessness. We work with the humility and without judgment, and take the right-spaced approach to ending homelessness. Sorry, guys, I left my glasses in my car, so I'm having a bit of difficulty here. Number 5 is we are committed to equity and inclusivity. We strive for equity and inclusion within our network by being sensitive to the compounding impact and complexity of intersectional relations of stigma, prejudice, and oppression. We aim to support all homeless identifying people, including those who experience multi-marginalization in addressing homelessness and housing need. Number 6, we are committed to being curious and honoring a space of learning and understanding. We welcome people of color, marginalized groups and individuals, and those of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. We are committed to ensuring that the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership Network is a safe and respectful place for all members. CLAIM members will treat fellow members respectively. We'll work collectively to ensure CLAIM is a space where everyone is heard. And oh, where'd my other page go? Hang on. Okay, here we are. I got too many papers in front of me. Okay. Okay, so this includes equal voting rights on boards and committees, staffing, and all other roles, but changing organizations to implement equitable representation doesn't happen overnight. Number 7 is build authentic relationships between people with and without lived experience. And so each principle comes with a how to do it and why we do it. So that's our 7 principles, and that's our national network, the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership. These are the guidelines we work from, and these are the guidelines that we follow.
That this is
and like I said, I'd be happy to share them so that they can be sent out to everybody. And I'd like to say thanks, Renee, for joining. Renee is one of our Cleland Steering Committee members.
welcome, Rain. Thank you for sharing, Debbie. It looks like it's such a great initiative to have included all of the 7 principles into the housing sector as well. And I really like the 7th point where it says even with or without lived experiences, people need to be included. It should have inclusivity in all of them. I really resonated with that as well. So, Debbie, Rennie,
Yes, hi. I just wanted to say that I've added the 7 principles in the chat.
oh yeah,
Okay,
Oh, thanks, Renee.
thank
you're
you.
welcome.
We will make sure to send it out to every participant once we get hold of it after this event ends. So, Debbie, moving on, so you've also worked in various shelters for women and children, and even now you've been working in Salvation Army as well. So, in resolution paper, there was one thing that we had noticed that many women are do not seek shelter or support as they fear losing the custody of their children. So, from your experience, how common is it for women to avoid accessing housing or shelter services because of the fear of losing custody of their children, or because of the fact that they are trying to protect them?
It's very common, very, very common here in Saskatoon. Women, if they lose their home, for whatever reason, if they're evicted or for non-payment of rent or whatever the case may be, they're afraid to go to social services, because if they can't get into a shelter or they have no home to go to, social services is going to take their children. And we all know that, and they know that. And so we do our best to try and support them. We have what's called an emergency after hours program, which is run out of the Salvation Army where I work. And it does provide some support. We will provide hotel space, but only for one night. And then they have to go to social services. We don't have any emergency housing here at all. And the wait lists for any low income housing are 500 to 800 people long. So these women are living on the streets, they're living in encampments, and they're just barely surviving. But they're doing what they can to keep their children because they don't want to lose their children.
So this still looks like a big issue, and
It's a huge issue.
okay.
And and like I said earlier, we just recently did a project here on hidden homelessness, and we spoke to a lot of women with children, and they did speak to us. But then after they got back to us and asked us not to use any of their quotes, because they feared that if their quotes were seen by social services, that certain social workers would know that quote came from them and would know that they're homeless with their children.
Yeah.
So there's that embedded fear of repercussion for women with children, and it's scary. It's sad.
It is. So, Debbie, I've got one last question for you. So regarding all of those conversations that we've had today, if you had the chance to implement one nationwide change immediately to tackle all of these issues of homelessness and access to basic needs, what would it be? And what would ensure that these solutions could actually get put into action?
Well, I kind of have more than one wish. One is more affordable housing. Two is increase social services, implement a basic income, and provide funding to organizations that are serving the homeless. Provide not funding, they're already getting funding, but provide more funding to organizations that are serving the homelessness. Because the demand is so bad that organizations can't keep up. They do their best, they try their best, they work hard, and they do the best they can. But with lack of funding, you can only do so much. So that's my wishes, is that things really change and that people with lived experience keep fighting to be at those decision-making tables.
That is true. So with these questions, I think we're at the end of the panel discussion session. Thank you, Debbie, Sandy, and Addie for sharing such valuable insights. But to quickly wrap up, I'd like to hear from each of you on one last point. What is one action you would encourage our audience to take to support housing rights for women and gender diverse individuals after they leave this event? After we leave this event, what would you encourage for all of us to take to support the housing rights? I'd like to go with you, Debbie, first.
Oh, me first?
Yeah, sure. Would you like to?
I would suggest the one thing would be to just, as I said earlier, keep pushing to get at the decision-making tables. And get more fight. Write letters to your MLAs, to your MPs, to your ministers, and fight to get people with lived experience at those tables and more investment in affordable housing. And affordable housing that's geared to income. But they also need to, one of the issues is that here, when you're in affordable housing, low income housing that's geared to your income, if you're working, that your rent is based on your income before. I always mix up gross and net pays. If you're working, that 35% is based on your pay before deductions. It's not based on your pay after deductions. And that needs to change. It needs to be based on your pay after your deductions, on what your take-home pay is, not what your full pay is.
Yes. Thank you, Debbie. So Sandy, I'd like to move on to you with this question. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my friend Debbie, she took mine. And so great minds think alike. Like I was saying, petition, speak to your MPs, your MPPs, ministers, anyone that is at those tables, speak with them, petition them. And most importantly, I'm just going to echo what she said, because this is what I've done for myself, because I didn't see anyone that looked like me at these tables. And then I pushed to get myself on these tables. If you have the lived experiences, be on these boards. Try to be in some of these committees as much as you can. Why? Your voice matters. And when you're on these panels, I'll give you an example. There's a homelessness hub group here in London, Ontario. When I went on it 2 years ago, when it first started, about 200 different organizations. No one looked like me. Not their fault. No one looked like me. So then, when they were talking about actions to take place for bringing hubs in, the Indigenous was left out. Blacks and newcomers were left out. So I was able to put my hand up and to speak and look and say, well, I'm looking at this that we put together. but I don't see any Blacks mentioned or any Indigenous or anyone that is a newcomer. And so that opened up their eyes. So what am I saying? We have to get into these spaces so that our voices can be heard. If not, it will be left out. So women, we have to do our job as much as possible to be in these places and advocate. Those are my few words.
Thank you, Sandy. Addie, what are your thoughts on this?
Don't be quiet, advocate, use, because we're in a generation of social media, use social media to get your message out there. I constantly use social media for reaching out when I need things. I shared this group on social or this chat on social media to try and have more people to hear the voices and everything. Don't be quiet, don't sit down, don't shut up, don't be pretty. Don't just smile like you're expected to, be loud, but be respectful.
Okay, well, so it seems like all of our three speakers have the same perspective or opinion that we should voice out our opinions, fight back, and not stay quiet. So those are the three takeaways that I can definitely take from this event. So thank you so much to all the speakers for sharing such valuable insights today and agreeing to do this. Also, it is so commendable that you all have had lived experiences yourselves and still chose to speak out and encourage other people to speak up as well. So, thank you so much. I think we still have got a few more minutes before we move on to the question and answer event. So, is there anything that you'd like to add to any of this apart from the questions? So, you've got like 2 minutes each if you'd like to share. Yeah, Debbie, go.
I noticed a question come up in the chat. What are ways that we can do to help change things? We need to start a national campaign on changing societal attitudes
Yeah.
because that's where the problem is. It's not just governments, but it's society too.
So we need to rise above as a society and as a member of this society to bring the change. Okay. Sandy, Addie, would you like to add?
One of the things I'd like to add to one of the questions um, would be in regards to the program and program structures and with the faith-based organizations. We have some gorgeous Anglican churches right across Canada. Some of them are um, not being utilized. I would love to see them being utilized in these ways to provide overflow beds for emergencies, pulse donation drives, um, and become more community oriented, and so that the churches are not just sitting there empty and rotting away, but they're actually being used for what they're supposed to do and help the community. So that's one of the things I'd like to see right across Canada. That a lot of them that are not being used to be used this way, to be repurposed for these situations. I know one of the questions I think Addie put in there was a pop-up menstrual drive. I could see a lot of these churches doing something like that, right? To support women that are unhoused, women that are in need of these things. So that's some of the things I had added, but I didn't get a chance to mention that I would like to see some of these faith-based organizations get more involved in more community outreach.
Thank you, Sandy. You've also been involved with the faith-based organization, and I think you've been doing a wonderful job in accommodating all of the women who are seeking for help. So thank you for that as well, for doing this for the community. So Adi, do you have anything that you'd like to add today before we move on to the next section?
My brain's loading, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's completely all right.
And yes, Addie, I'm going to reach out to you.
Okay. But why does my brain not want to work right now? Of course, it's getting late, that's why. But I think it's really important that my dog stop being loud behind me. I think it's really important that that we as people just advocate for everyone, like as we've said multiple times, but like even using like hidden networking or whatever it's called. I don't know how to put the word. Could be helpful because you never know if the person you're talking to knows someone that could help someone,
Yeah.
and it never hurts to just try without like breaking confidentiality, obviously, because don't do that. But it's important to always just like be aware of the people you know and use like in the best way possible, use who you know to get support where you can.
Yes, Ad. Thank you so much, Addy. Do you want to add some more? I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
Okay. So, Addy, it's really commendable that you have also been gone through such things, but still you choose to speak up, and then you are still you going on forward by being by registering as a social service worker and also trying to help people who are still struggling with all of this. So thank you, Addie, Sandy, and Debbie, all of you for doing such wonderful works in the community that we live in. So now I think it's time for us to move on to our question and answer sessions. I see we've been getting a lot of questions in the chats. So I'd like to hand over this session to my other colleague, Burju, to carry forward the session. And thank you so much, everyone. It has been lovely.
Hi, I want to thank all of you again for contributing with your time and consideration around this serious matter, and also the audience for holding on with us this long. There is like few questions that I would like to address. What can be the biggest barrier women face in accessing safe and adequate housing? I will post that there. Sorry. I have posted them in the comments so that you can refer to them and give us your answers.
Sorry,
Sorry, I
Burju.
had to step away for a minute, so
Did you
I
have a
missed.
specific question, Burju, for the speakers?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you just ask one of the questions? Like pull
Yeah.
a question up for the speakers.
Yeah. So the first question is, what can be the biggest barrier women face in accessing safe and adequate housing? So what do you guys think?
Doesn't exist. A lot of it just doesn't exist. There's not enough housing.
I've
That's
heard that.
Sorry,
I think
Burju.
one of the
lack of rent controls.
yeah,
The
one of
cost
the
of rent.
I think one of the biggest barriers when I counsel a lot of the women that go through domestic violence and other things is that people don't believe them. And so the first thing, I think as they're navigating through it is to get people to believe them and for them to feel safe and trusted. I know when I was going through it and just finding the right person within my own family to speak with, to navigate, that was my biggest barrier because nobody believes you. A lot of times, the individual that's doing the harm are so I don't even know how to say it.
Manipulative, and
Yeah, right.
they're liars. Yeah.
And so they even convinced their own parents, as mine did, my ex did, and that they wouldn't help people to do that. I'm like, well, and so I believe one of the biggest barriers, first the truth, and then hurling over that. I don't know if the other women agree with me. It's just some head shaking there. So that's what I believe, from what I've heard and from my own experiences, is that initial finding that person that will believe you.
I absolutely agree with you because I found so many times I spent 20 years in abusive relationships. It took me that long to get out, and beating after beating after beating. My kids saw things they never should have seen, but nobody believed me. Nobody believed, oh no, he'd never do that. He'd never ever do that. Well, he's doing that, help me, provide me. Like, my family wouldn't even support me. And that's what hurt the most, because there were children involved. So I was on my own. And so I totally agree with what you're saying, is people don't believe you.
I'm
They
really
believe
They
it's
blame you.
they believe it's inadequacies in the woman herself.
Yeah,
So I went through that.
that's it. That's it.
Yeah, I went through that years ago, and it's something wrong with me, that they should take my children because I obviously don't pick the right people. I don't do the right things. I don't make the right decisions. So therefore, it's me, not the males. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in here. Burju, I think I got a little confused here. You were asking the question that is one of the polls that we were going to ask our audience, not
Oh,
so I will launch that poll for our audience right now. But Burju, if you would like to look at the chat and look at questions for our speakers, I'll go ahead and launch the poll, and everyone can respond to that poll.
good
Yeah,
question.
I'm really sorry, everyone. I apologize for my inconvenience.
Okay.
So, if I see the first question that Linda have asked addressing Sandy was, are drugstores obliged to offer free menstrual products for women who ask?
I'm not too sure. That's a very good question. I want to look into that. Because if they are, that is something that I would promote, right? But would they do that with the stigma? That's the other thing now, right? The stigma that's going on. But I need to check into that. I'm seeing some no, it doesn't happen. I don't know. I don't know if Addie will know that more than I would. I don't know. Or Debbie, have you heard of that? The drugstores offering that?
I haven't heard of it. And I've had friends like desperate for things, and I'm like, well, come to my house if you can, or I'll come and find you.
I gotta find that out though. I'm gonna probe, and if I do find out the answer, I will email you guys and let you guys know. But that's a good question. I gotta find out. I know with the libraries they do. So if the libraries have it, maybe they do too. Who knows?
So I think everyone should be able to see the results on the screen of that first poll. So it looks like affordability and availability are key. People are willing to sacrifice safety a little bit, maybe. So
And there was a follow-up question targeted on Addie about what are other ways can we help someone who is underage living an abusive home life, and are there process in place of this to assist this individual to be on their own? What are your
From
thoughts?
my personal experience, I was on my own, but like there's supposed to be like Children's Aid Society processes in place, but I don't really personally trust them. But there's places like in Kitchener, there's Safe Haven for children from 12 to 18. In London, there's the YOU
Yeah.
shelter from 16 to 25. And there's also the hub downtown and the hub at the hospital for 16 to 25-year-olds. There are some processes and stuff, but most of them are not amazing. And they also are kind of like Children's Aid Society, traumatizing, sometimes necessary, but definitely a traumatizing experience.
We do have some places here for youth. We have what's called a male youth lodge. We have 2 of them for males under 18. And we have an organization here that has 17 homes in the city for females, and they're called My Homes. But the issue with them is they're not supervised. So even there's no structure. So even between 15 and 18, when the girls are going in there, there's still no structure. They don't have to go to school. They can do whatever they want.
Wow.
So and then even with them being in these homes, it's all through social services. Then at 18, they age out and they're put out in the streets with no life skills and no knowledge on how to move forward. And they're just dumped in the community and they end up homeless.
Cycle begins again.
Thank you, Adi and Debbie, for sharing your opinions. So the other question was, can you partner with hubs or hospitals to put harm reduction vending machines to include menstrual supplies out there? This may help to address after our needs. So what are your thoughts about the vending machines? You think they are helpful?
But don't they have to pay? Is it free when they do the vending machines and that off? Or do they have to put a quarter in, or do they have to put something?
I think with any kind of vending
I've seen
machine,
ones,
you still have to pay for it.
yeah, I've seen those ones that you gotta pay for it. And so there's another barrier there for those that
Yeah.
are, you know,
Because even a quarter to someone who's homeless with kids, or even without kids, a quarter is a lot of money.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you again for sharing the opinion. There was a particular question addressed to Addy. Do you think that there is a pink tax for menstrual products in Ontario? If so, do you think that communities and government should reduce this pink tax?
The pink tax is something I talk a lot about, and I can go on for hours about it. There's definitely a pink tax. It shouldn't be there. It should be regulated. Like, do we have a choice to bleed? No, but like condoms are free. Men have that choice to like not have sex, but the only way I can cancel my period is pregnancy or like removing things. So like it should definitely be regulated. I don't know why it's not.
It's a valid opinion. Thank you for sharing honestly with us. Then there was a common question like, opinion. Grocery stores and drug stores can make donations for women products to pass out. I think that may help many women with their things. Do you agree?
We need to get the grocery stores to be making donations of those products to community organizations.
Yeah. There needs to be more donations. I know that some places do, but not all do, and there could be a lot more
I'll tell you a quick story.
access.
I can't say the place that did it. So they did a great donation for us. We thought it was a great thing to do. I never knew that these things have expiry dates on them. You guys know that they're after a while they're no good, and it caused infections for women. And so that's something that we've learned through this process. We have to ask them how long have they had these products in their stores.
I never knew that.
I'm laughing
But
because I didn't know I'm a
I'm
woman.
gathering by the look on your face, Addie, you didn't know that either.
I didn't.
Why did I throw out the boxes?
But that's what I've learned until we went back, because some of the women came back because they got infections, right? And because there's a plastic part on it, and we know plastic, right? And heat and all those kind of things. And so then I just did a deeper investigation. I find out, wait a minute, we have to find out how long they've had these products on their shelves. So they donated it because it was there for years, and they wanted to get rid of it. And so that's a question. If that's I said, okay, I can't say the name. I won't say the name. But what we have to do is when we're getting these donations, we have to ask those kind of questions. How long have you had this on your
Good
shelves?
question. London has that organization called, I think it's My Sister's Place.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I know I've been there, and I know that they have condoms and that kind of thing. Do they have feminine products?
When they get them donated.
I was gonna say that.
Okay.
I was gonna
I
say
worked there for a little bit. That's why I'm like,
Oh,
when they
okay.
get them donated, they do.
Oh, okay.
these are things when I speak to everybody now. I said, "Did you guys ask me?" I never thought of that. So it's a common thing, but because we've had that experience and women came back to let us know, now it's like, okay, now I got to educate everybody because we didn't know. We're women. I never thought of that, right? And so we're learning something new together.
I know, and like I have 3 daughters. So, you know, being on I have 5 kids altogether, and being on the run all the time during that 20-year period and not having money and having to find products for 3 girls, it's like, oh my God. It was like almost impossible most of the time.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't afford to go in the store and buy them. And the 3 girls are different sizes, different shapes, so you need 3 different kinds and stuff. So it was difficult. It was hard.
Yeah, something you just don't think about, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, Burju, we have another poll. Did you want me to launch that second poll?
Yep, that would be great. Thank you, Linda. Also, thank you, Sandy, for sharing with us that brand new information. Now I can even check before getting something. Yeah, thank you.
This poll says, what actions do you think we can, as community members, take to create a safe space for women to access housing facilities? Are there any other questions for the speakers while our audience is filling in the poll?
There is one. I think that's pointed towards Sandy again. Like, would building period props up and placing them near encampments and areas known to have high population of homeless individuals be possible? Having them stacked up like once a week or so to help individuals have access where they need it most. Sandy, I would be happy to donate my time and skills to build them and try to reach out to my friends about collecting products to stock them.
I think we
And
need to talk and do that. I think that's a great idea in order to do that. So I'm going to reach out to Addie. I think it's Addie that did that one, right? Yeah. So I'm going to definitely reach out to you, and we can start doing that. We don't need anyone. We just have to do it ourselves, right? And if we're going to do that, I could also go to a lot of the churches, faith-based organizations, to the mosque and stuff, and get some donations from them as well. So we can do that and get some hands-on from the Sikh community and all that. They said they want to help to participate to do things. So let's do it.
I'm also like, I know that the encampment people change a lot, but back when I was doing outreach not too long ago, they all seem to respond really well to me. So like my boss was like, be careful, be careful. I'm like, why? They're so nice. Way to like perpetuate stigma within an agency to help people.
I didn't have any problems with that
It's
happening.
funny because I just came back from holidays with my 2 sisters, and we went to Vancouver, and I've been working in the homeless sector for years, and I wanted to go to East Hastings and, you know, just walk through. But and I wanted to, you know, get a feel for what their homeless sector is like. My sisters wouldn't have any part of it. They absolutely not. You're not doing that. And I think part of it came from because where I work now, I did work 4 to 12 for a long time before I ran the emergency after hours program I mentioned earlier. And so I worked 4 to 12. And when I was working that shift, I did have somebody pull a machete on me. And my sisters know about this. So I kept the whole week we were there, I kept trying to talk them into going, and I was like, no. I wanted to go. I wanted to meet some of them and talk to some of them because I'm not afraid of them. You know, they're people, right? And stuff, but they wouldn't have any part of it, and they wouldn't allow me to do it. So
Thank you, Addie, Sandy, and Debbie, for your personal and professional opinions around that building props. And there is a question from Linda for Debbie. Do we need international standards for supporting these homeless women so that some communities don't get left behind?
what was that?
Like, do we need national standards for supports for homeless women so that some communities don't get left behind?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need national standards Canada-wide. And I know every province and every city is different, but if there's national standards in place, then we could be working together and making sure that there's improvements in all of our communities. And sharing, you know, coming together and sharing, you know, what's working in your community, what's working in your community, what's not working in ours. So sharing that information to improve everybody's communities on what's working and what's not working, and talking about how to improve things.
Thank you, Debbie. So I will move on to the next question.
I have one last poll I'd like to launch maybe while you're doing that, Burju, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Linda. So the one last question from Linda, again to Debbie, was like, do affordable housing units need to have social supports to be successful?
I think any housing units, especially if it's low income affordable housing, should have on-site supports. They should have an on-site doctor, an on-site nurse practitioner, on-site social worker, an on-site mental health and addictions worker. Because that's one of the hugest barriers is when they need to go for supports, they're jumping from here to here to here to here. And that involves bus fare, which a lot of them don't have. It needs to be all inclusive, supportive housing.
I agree. I live in subsidized housing here in London, and we have a community unit. But why? They don't have, we need I'm pretty sure that at least 50% of the townhouses in my complex don't have a family doctor. They use walk-in clinics to get any help, and they have to go to like a different one because hours and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah,
the community units need to be utilized better.
Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like here, our shelter, our Salvation Army shelter, we have an on-site EMT, we have an on-site social worker, we have an on-site mental health and addictions worker, and we have an on-site doctor that comes in once a week and an on-site nurse practitioner that comes in 2 days a week. But because here you can't, there's no doctors here in Saskatoon taking patients at all. Like my sister can't, her family doctor retired, and she's traveling 2 hours just to see a family doctor because she can't get one here in the city where she lives.
Yeah, I haven't had a family doctor since I moved to London in 2015.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Thankfully, I've been a student at Fanshawe and can access the Fowler Kennedy Clinic, but graduation's coming up real quick and I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Just pretend you're still a student in training.
Student in training. I love that.
Find another program. I still got OSAC time left.
That's it. That's it.
Exactly.
Defer. I love it. I love it.
Thank you guys for sharing why social support is really important to make it happen. And then it was my bad. I missed the last question. was again pointed towards Debbie. Like, what are some ways that we can do to make others empathize and fight the stigma that many homeless people face? London once wanted to have new homeless shelter but was cancelled due to community pressure. What can we do to change situations like that?
I really think that, and I mentioned this earlier, I really think that there needs to be a national campaign on changing societal attitudes, because that's where a big part of the problem comes from. We need to get more people to care about the issue rather than fighting the issue. Everybody's fighting the issue. You know, homeless people are losers. Get off your ass, get a job. But they don't understand the root causes. They don't understand the trauma. They don't understand, they don't know the people's stories. You know, take the time to stop on a street and talk to somebody, find out where they're coming from. You know, it could be loss of a job. It could, and Addie said it earlier, you're only one day away from, and I tell people the same thing. You're only one paycheck away from being homeless. You know, so get out there and learn their stories, talk to them. They're not going to kill you. They're not going to hurt you. They're, some of those homeless folks are some of the most gentlest folks there are.
Oh my goodness, they have such great personalities. I'm telling you.
Exactly.
You just got to stop and talk with them, and such intellects, intelligent, all of this. But you just got to take the time to speak with them, and you'll know their story.
Yeah, and society just assumes that they're lazy, no good bums. Well, I'm going to say it because to assume you're making an ass of yourself, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry about the language, but
no.
Sorry, I'm blunt.
That's a donkey.
But yeah, society plays a huge role in what's going on too. So we need to do something to change that.
And I like what Addie said before in regards to social media, because, you know, social media plays a big part in how we see things and how we take things in. And so we can flip the script. And I like how she said that you use it and you can tell the stories and change the narrative. What if this was you? Right? And let people now can see themselves in that other person's shoe. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to now flip the script and let people see it on the other side and get the understanding and get them to see the human side of each of our friends that are unhoused.
Thank you, Addie, Sandy, and Debbie, for giving your valuable opinions and answers, especially about why stigma should be eradicated, because it could happen to any of us. That was really making much sense. So thank you again.
All right, I think we are at our timeline. So, and I think we've read the questions. And on behalf of CFUW, I'd like to say thank you to the student group for arranging this. You have, the four of you, done a wonderful job, I believe. And thank you to our speakers for agreeing to come and speak, for being so caring, so vulnerable, and so such leaders in what you do and say. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you to the audience for coming and staying, and your great questions. We wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for all of you coming to listen. I will have the recording to be able to share with the list of people who registered. And so there are probably some people who didn't get a chance to come tonight that I'll send it to, but all of you that are here can get the link. And if you are interested, you could share that, I believe, with people who you know that couldn't make it here tonight. Yeah, and just wrapping up, I can't say thank you enough. It's obviously a very big issue. We do really need to pull together. I think all of your advice is so well taken. The lived experience, and it's interesting how all three of you have lived experience and you've gone on to work in the field. And so, Addie, I know that you will do some great things when you get into the field and make changes. And I think that's, as women, that's how we do things, right? So,
Right.
yeah, we keep collaborating and keep working together and keep making changes. So, thank you to everyone. If the students want to hang back, we could have a small little chat. And yeah, we'll just wish everybody a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Great job.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Okay, here we are.
Oh,
Good job, everybody. Let me stop the recording because I think we're still recording. So I'll figure out how to do that. And sorry, I kind of missed, Helly, I missed part of your beginning. I'm so sorry. I'm such